I'm so excited to learn the Melacha of Kotzer with you. You've already learned, I'm sure by now, you've already learned about plowing and sowing or seeding. And today we're going to learn about Kotzer. Kotzer from the ground up. Are you allowed to climb a tree on Shabbat? Are you allowed to enjoy fruits that grew from a tree? Obviously, fruits grow from a tree. You're allowed to enjoy them on Shabbat. One time I was at a friend's house on Shabbat, and there was a fellow there who was Jewish, who was observant, but didn't know all that much. And he comes in with tangerines. And I said, wow, those tangerines, they look delicious. Where'd you get them? He says, oh, I got them from my neighbor's tree. I was like, that's amazing. When did he give them to you? He's like, oh, I just picked them. I was like, but it's Shabbat. So of course we couldn't eat them. They looked delicious. They looked amazing. But obviously they were off limits because you're not allowed to pick something on Shabbat. And if something does get picked, so you can't eat it. Anytime that you remove something from its source of growth, you're doing an act of kotzer. And this really applies to anything that grows. Fruits, vegetables, grains, even wood, which has no benefit per se. Obviously, you would not light that wood on fire on Shabbat, but you're still not allowed to gain any sort of benefit from it. You're not allowed to remove it on Shabbat. And not only is this true for things that grow from the soil, but it's even true for things that grow not from the soil. What am I talking about? Of course, mushrooms, other fungi, which of course is the plural of fungus. Doesn't grow in the ground, and yet it's prohibited to pick them on Shabbat. It's covered by the Melechet of Kotzer. Bean sprouts that have taken root cannot be removed from their growing environment. And of course, it's very relevant for our younger grades for when they do these growing experiments with bean sprouts. An interesting illustration of this idea actually relates to potted plants. Many of us have potted plants in our homes, in our yards. In halacha, if a plant grows in what's called as a atzutz nakuv, which is a pot that's perforated, that is to say that it has a hole in it, and then that pot is connected to the ground because it's resting on the ground. So in that case, it's considered to be connected to the soil. And since the pot has holes, the plant can absorb nutrients from the ground when it's placed on or above the ground. So for this reason, the plant is said to be connected to the soil. And if you have such a plant and it's placed on the soil, of course you cannot remove it from there on Shabbat. If you have a glass vase filled with water on Shabbat, and of course you have flowers in that vase, and you want to move it off your dining room table to be able to see the person that's across the table from you, totally permissible. But can you actually take the flowers and put them into the water on Shabbat? Or remove them from the water on Shabbat? That, of course, you cannot do. So if your little brother or your little sister knocks the table and the vase falls down and the flowers fall out of the vase and your parents want to put it back in, what do you say? Very respectfully, let's not do that on Shabbat. Not only is this true when growth is still possible, it's even true when growing is no longer possible. Let's say you have a friend named Josh. And Josh has a fruit tree in his yard. And on the fruit tree is these fully ripened fruit. And the longer you leave it on there, they get dried out, the squirrels will get to it, the local parrots in Beverly Hills will get to it. And it's not useful to leave it on the tree anymore. In fact, the fruit is no longer getting any nourishment from the tree. It's still not permissible to remove that fruit. So let's review. You cannot detach a growing item from its growth source, number one. Number two, even if that growth source is not soil, you still cannot detach it. And number three, even if the growing item has actually finished growing, it's still prohibited, it's still asur, one may not remove it from the ground. There's an interesting scenario which we haven't yet discussed called fresh vegetables with roots that are attached. You may have seen this in the store, maybe even mom or dad, or whoever it is that does your shopping, Instacart, whoever it might be, buys these vegetables for you sometimes. You can get these really, really fresh at the farmer's market. And sometimes the vegetables come with their root attached, sometimes even with some soil as well. According to this that we've said, you need to remove the roots or the soil before Shabbat if you want to eat the vegetable on Shabbat. And although the roots are not connected to anything, the plant is still attached to the roots and could derive nourishment from them. And therefore cutting the plant from the roots would then be kotzer. Number two, vegetables sprouting in a moist environment or stored in soil. Some vegetables, carrots, onions, potatoes, I think they're all root vegetables, aren't they? They're often stored in a cool and moist area once they've been harvested. So let's say you have some onions in your cold storage if you live on the East Coast. We don't know about that in California. And when you go to use them on Shabbat, you see that they've sprouted, and that can happen even here in California. And the reason why that kind of sprouting happens is because of the conditions that the onions were stored in. So if you take them out of the cellar, will you be violating the melacha of Kotzer? Actually, no, you would not be. The prohibition of Kotzer does not apply when the growing takes place in a not normal way. Here, the growing is not normal, the plant is not physically connected to anything, and therefore it's perfectly permissible to use that onion if you want to chop it up for a salad for Shabbat. Now, as I'm sure you've learned already, every melacha has melacha, or that's an av, or that's related to the oraita, that is on a Torah level, something is prohibited. And then, of course, there are rabbinic extensions of Kotzer, because we want to make sure that, God forbid, a person should not violate Shabbat. And so the Chachamim, the sages, extended halacha by instituting measures known as gezerot. And in the case of Kotzer, there are a number of important gezerot to know. Are you allowed to use a tree on Shabbat? Chachamim said, do not use a tree on Shabbat, since picking a fruit, breaking a branch, or any sort of similar activity is considered Kotzer. So therefore, stay away from trees. What does that mean? Don't lean on a tree. Don't climb a tree, even those great trees in Roxbury Park that are so easy to climb. And don't shake a branch. And so the gezerah against using a tree extends to any item that's attached and connected to a tree. For example, if our friend Josh placed his suit jacket on a tree branch while outside because he wanted to play with his friends at the park, you'd have to leave it there until after Shabbat. What about a hammock? Let's say your hammock is tied to your tree. Are you allowed to use that on Shabbat? The answer is only if it's indirectly attached to the tree. As long as the hammock is not attached directly to the tree, it's rather attached to a hook, which is attached to the tree. And obviously that hammock and the hook have to be there before Shabbat begins. And the tree would have to be sturdy enough not to be moved by the swinging action of the hammock. So that would be okay. Amazingly, there's no difference between a dead tree and a live tree. As we said sort of earlier, there's no difference between a dead tree and a live tree. Either way, one should not be touching a tree on Shabbat. The one exception is a tree stump. You can use a tree stump that's less than 11 inches high. You can sit on it, you can stand on it. Nobody would consider a tree in the same category as a tree stump. Can you smell fruits attached to a tree? Of course not. You might come to yank it off. And of course, that's not allowed as well. And finally, let's say you are an equestrian and you like to ride horses. And I don't know if anybody in the school takes horse riding lessons or not, but are you allowed to ride your horse on Shabbat? So imagine this, you're riding your horse on Shabbat. And you ride under a tree, some branches are in your way, so you brush them aside, breaking them off. Or maybe you need a branch to kind of encourage the horse along, so you grab one. And obviously you're not allowed to do that. And because riding horses was very common back then, in order to avoid this scenario, the sages, the Chachamim, decided that it's prohibited to ride or use animals on Shabbat. Now, even though not all animals can be used for riding, well, we need to look beyond just the technical issue of breaking a branch. We know that animals played a major role in daily life in earlier times. And of course, in some places, they still do so as well. By setting animals off limit on Shabbat, the Chachamim were making a distinction between how we behave on Shabbat compared to the other days of the week. If you have a pet at home, so then you can discuss with your rabbi, what are you allowed to do? What are you not allowed to do? And we'll leave it there for right now. Very, very interesting halacha with very practical ramifications. I hope that you enjoy this. If you do have any fruit trees, make sure you pick those fruits before Shabbat and enjoy them. Have a wonderful, wonderful day.